to Witches and Prose podcast. My name is Haley Camarillo, author of Fury and Flame, book 1 of the Witching Hour series that's coming out this September. Today I have with me fantasy and supernatural author Tom Horn. Hi, I'm so glad to have you on.
Hi, I'm glad to be here, Haley.
So can you tell us a little bit about your books?
Well, the first one I wrote was The Chosen. I actually wrote that for my daughter. I tried to get her to read sword and sorcery fantasy before when she was younger in high school. And she always looked at me and rolled her eyes and said, "Dad, I'm not into sword and sorcery fantasy." But yet she would always give me these young adult books that she was currently reading. And when she graduated high school, she started with the Airline Academy. And I thought, she was up in Atlanta. We live in Satellite Beach, Florida. She was up in Atlanta doing her training and she was homesick. So I was writing a book and I would send her chapters as I finished them. And I knew I could write one that she would enjoy. Mm-hmm. And that's how The Chosen came to be. It has these 6 teenagers from present day end up going through a portal to another world, which one of the main characters was actually born in that world. And her mother had sent her through the portal as an infant in order to save her life. Oh, and she's kind of forced to go back through it to save her current family.
That's very exciting. I like that. And I love that it started out as like just trying to get, have this like thing that you could share with your daughter. That's cool. That's something that I definitely hope for when my kids get older. Right now they're only 5 and 2, so they're a lot littler. What inspired you for The Chosen, and then your other series as well? I'd love to hear about those.
Well, I've always wanted to write. Ever since I was a little kid, I used to read. I'd spend summers with my grandparents in Arizona, and my grandfather after lunch he liked to take naps and read. And so I get one of his Louis L'Amour Westerns and go into my bedroom and I'd read it. And I'd read a paragraph and I think, wow, he could have wrote a whole story on that one paragraph. So I just start scribbling away and writing my own little stories as well. So I've always loved to write and I've always wanted to be an author.
That is awesome. I love that. So tell us a little bit, what are you currently working on right now?
Currently, I'm working on another fantasy series. It's a book I had written in 1997, but had never gotten published. And I continue to work on it. And finally, I decided I'm in the process of working on book 3 of the Chronicles of Vespia, but I need to do a little more world building on that because I'm going further to the west. And I needed to do a little more world building. And while I was doing that, I figured, well, I've already got this one book written. I just need to write another draft of it and kind of get it ready for publication. And so I talked to my editor and she's all for it. So that's what we're going to do.
Oh, that's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's about, or is
it's an epic fantasy. It's called the Wizard's Tale, Castle Doom, and this wizard or this ancient wizard is given this task by this gypsy woman because there was this one god or a man who wanted to be a god, which happened to be his brother, the wizard's brother. He had tried to fulfill his dreams of becoming super powerful and all, and they banished him. Okay. They banished him from this plane of existence, and now he's trying to come back. And there's this, if he's able to come back, then he's going to wreak havoc on everything around, mm-hmm. and be all powerful. So they're out to stop him. But in order for this, he's got these people working for him on this world that are trying to bring him back. And if they are successful, then, like I say, everything's in jeopardy. The whole world's in jeopardy and a lot of lives can be lost. But in order to seal in order for him to open up this portal so that he can return to the world, he needs this relic called the Black Heart, because the Black Heart was used to seal him in this realm, and he can't get back in without it. But the Black Heart, after he was locked away in this other dimension, it has gone missing, and so its whereabouts are unknown. But this gypsy woman tells Malok, the wizard, that he's going to need 3 generations to come together to keep this portal sealed. He's also going to need the Black Heart, but also he's going to need 3 people from 3 schools of magic, good, evil, and neutrality, are going to have to come together also to help seal this portal. And that's how the story begins. And he's going out on his mission to do this. And to do it, he goes to these various towns and tells a story. He pulls an orb out of his pocket and puts it in the air, and it grows as he's in it. It was like a giant television screen for them, and they can see the visions that as he's telling his story, he sees the visions, or they all see the vision in this orb. And that's the main storyline right there, is what's happening in this story that he's telling.
Awesome.
And the overview of it is basically that knowledge is power, and the gods at one time had gotten together to create an oracle of power. And this oracle they infused with all knowledge, so that if mankind got lost and needed answers to certain questions, they could ask, and these questions would be answered for them, to help progress them along. But evil decided that they wanted to infuse it with an evil essence, and they did. So actually inside this orb is 2 essences, one of pure evil and one of a balance of good, evil, and neutrality. But and 9 men were selected as keepers of this oracle. And when they got to these ice caves where this oracle was kept, the oracle reached out telepathically to one of the men, and the evil half of the oracle twisted his mind, and since he was easily corrupted, he fought his other fellow keepers and defeated all but one of them, and they held him off while the one guy took the oracle and fled.
Okay.
And now they're trying to, in order to stop him, they're going to have to throw this oracle into a fountain of light where it was created to keep evil from reigning supreme.
Awesome. That sounds really exciting. I love all the world building details.
It's a story that when a friend of mine, when I was in the Navy, taught my wife and I how to play Dungeons and Dragons. And this story is basically the first adventure that I ever DM'd.
Oh, that's awesome.
A lot of the characters in it are some of them are my wife created and stuff like that. But she'd always make these characters, and I'd say, well, what's their backstory? And she'd say, I don't know. And so I'd sit there and I'd write a backstory for her characters for her. And that's how this kind of came into being.
That is awesome. That is really cool. That is very, very awesome.
I hate having characters that don't have any background to them. You have to know where they came from.
That is awesome. And I love that your wife, like a lot of the characters came from your wife, and then it's kind of like she has a hand in it as well. That's
really awesome. Well, I at one point in that I needed to kill somebody off in the book, but I didn't want to kill any of these main characters. So I went back and earlier on in the novel, and I created this other character and got him up to the point, and they were fixing to go into the final castle, and my wife says, I don't care if he dies. I don't care about it. I don't care if he dies. And I thought, wow, that hurt. I thought, okay, I'll fix that. That's a mistake on my part. I went back and I fixed it. I was going to make her care about him. I was going to make it hurt when he died. And it got to the point where it was time to kill him off, and I couldn't do it.
Oh.
I liked him too much. So I ended up killing one of my main characters instead.
Oh my gosh, that is funny. It's funny how characters come up on us like that.
Yeah.
I've had a couple that are like that too, where they start out as nothing, and you're like, okay, you just have them for one single purpose, and then they just have a mind of their own. Okay, so what is your writing process like? Do you usually plot out a lot?
I do a varied combination of both. I'll write little post-it notes.
Mhm.
Basically, I've got several desktops on my computer, and I've got various pictures on them. Like I've got one for the Wizard's Tale that I'm writing. I've got all the pictures of all the characters that I hand drew are on that, and I'll put little post-it notes, little sticky notes
Mhm.
on there with little bits of information. Like for chapter 1, I want this, this has got to
Yeah.
happen all the way through to the end of it. And sometimes I mean, for like Castle Doom, when I first wrote it, I knew how I wanted to begin the story. I knew what was going to happen in the middle, and I knew how I was going to end it.
Okay.
And I just had to fluff it out. And like when I started The Chosen, all I knew was how it was going to begin.
Okay.
And I had to get to that, how and start writing it along.
Mhm.
But that one I was pretty much a pantser. I wrote up while sitting at the computer, just out the top of my head. But a lot of times I'll get if I'm stuck, I'll go to bed at night. And this is something my editor finds fascinating, is that I have these dreams, and
Mhm.
I'll dream about something in my story, and I'll wake up, and the next morning I'll go write it.
Oh,
And a lot of times it works. And I used to, if I had a dream, I couldn't remember it the next day. But now I've gotten to the point where I practiced it so much that, okay, sometimes if I need to learn more, I'll sit there and I'll think about it before I go to bed and say, okay, I know this happened in the dream. Now I need to know what happens next. So I'll go to bed thinking about it, and I'll dream.
that is
I'll dream. And so
awesome.
I'll start writing it the next day.
That is
Plus,
great.
I keep a notepad with me by my computer. One by my bed, so that if I
Mhm.
wake up in the middle of the night, I can scribble something down. Because a lot of, like Sinister's Fury, book 2 of the Chronicles of Vespia, I had this dream about somebody walking through this darkness, and they were very scared about what was, they could hear some sounds and stuff that were out of the ordinary, and it was kind of scary to them. And I couldn't remember it the next day. And so I thought about it, and I said, okay, I need to redream that. And I had it again. And that's ends up being one of my chapters in the book.
That's awesome. I love that. That is great. That is, dreams are a powerful thing. Most of
They
my
are.
stories have started from dreams, so I completely understand that. That is amazing that you're able to like go to bed thinking about it. I've had that happen a couple times, but I am going to have to take some pointers because that is really helpful.
Well, it doesn't always work, but more often than not, it does. I mean, like when I was writing Sinister's Fury, I had gotten up to like 80,000 words, and I thought, man, I've got to be almost to the end yet. And I have a goal when I write a book. I like to try and break 100,000 words.
Mhm.
And I set a goal for my fantasy novels. I want at least 130,000 words.
Okay.
And whether I make it or not, and it's like my editor says, well, if when I said I'm at 80,000 words and I'm almost to the end, and I'm hitting this a blank wall, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. It's going to end way too soon. And she says, a story takes as long as it needs to take.
Mhm.
If you're done in 85,000 words, so be it. If it's 185,000, that's fine. Whatever it takes to tell the story. And that took a lot of pressure off of me. And so but I kept struggling with it. And then I had a dream, and I thought, oh, well, that's something that needs to happen. And so I sent them on this little, and it turned out to be 133,000 words by
Oh
the
my
time I
gosh.
was through it.
Well, there you go. There you got your words, and that is awesome. So okay, so with your books, they are definitely more, fantasy geared. Do you have any romance in them at all?
Well, in The Chosen, it starts out, it's the first, in the prologue of the book, is where this mounted warrior is chasing this gypsy woman who's carrying this bundle
Mhm.
against her chest, and she's running through the forest, and he traps her on this overhang, on this precipice, and she knows she's fixing to die because it had been prophesized that a child that was born was going to grow up and defeat him one day. So he's out to kill everybody of that age.
Okay.
And so, I mean, it went so far as that he even killed his own infant daughter
Oh my.
because she was of that age. And but the gypsy woman threw her baby through this off this precipice, and it went through this mist. It was a sparkling kind of mist, and it the baby just disappeared. And so they went searching for it later after, Morag did, and he couldn't find the baby. So he just assumed that it had died in drowned or something and
Mhm.
carried off downstream. But actually, the baby went through this portal, and then the family that got her raised her, and now she's 15 years old, and her high school friends, she's kind of shy, awkward, uh, straight A student in school. She works real hard, but her two best friends are her one is Trish Morgan, and she's kind of like the leader of the pack, and she wants everybody to do what she says. And then she has this other friend, Candy Anderson, who's kind of carefree and more like the Valley Girl type thing. And but they're the best of friends. They've known each other since grade school, and now they're all 15 years old. And they go to they're going out to a carnival. And while they're at a carnival, they've got these dates that show up, and her parents drop her off at the carnival and give her money, and they, tell her to have a good time because she never gets out. And they're happy that she's going out with her friends. Well, they get to this carnival, and she's there's this guy that she's like a lot, his name is Trevor. And so she's paired off with him because the other girls have their boyfriends.
Mhm.
And when they get to the fun house, they go in, and it's got those funky mirrors, and they're looking at themselves, and they see this guy. He's got a hood on, and he's kind of looking at them.
Uh-huh.
And they decide they're going to ditch everybody else, and they're going to go get snow cones and ride the Ferris wheel.
Uh-huh.
And as they're walking past, going back the other way, the guy kind of bumps into them, and he kind of sniffs the air. And the Trevor's kind of being all bravado and saying, what's your problem? Becca's
Mhm.
telling him, oh, don't worry about it. Let's just go. And they thought it was odd, but they never thought anything of it. Well, they end up going to the snow cone, getting a snow cone, and then they get on the Ferris wheel. And at the top, as the Ferris wheel stops and they're getting more riders on, he reaches over and gives her a kiss.
Mhm.
And she fumbles with her snow cone and drops it, and it falls down and hits this girl on
Uh-huh.
her blouse, and gets her the rainbow colored snow cone all
Yeah.
over her blouse, and ruins it. And it's late October, so it's a little chilly outside. Well, when the ride ends, they get off it, and the girl's still standing there, and she's mad. And Becca apologizes, takes off her leather jacket, and gives it to her, and says,
Uh-huh.
"Here, and when you get home, you bring this stuff to school on Monday, and I'll get your blouse clean." She said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It gives me an opportunity to go shopping." But she thanks her for the jacket, and her date go off. Well, they decide they better go join the others. And when they meet up with the others, Trish decides that they need to go to the gypsy fortune teller and get their fortunes read, while the guys go to the shooting gallery and try to win them a prize. So the girls all go to a fortune teller, and the fortune teller has been waiting for this moment because
Mhm.
she was sent through the portal to find Becca. And
Okay.
she's got all these girls, and she starts telling them their fortunes. And when she gets to Becca, she tells her that Morag's dogs are searching for her.
Mhm.
So that she's got to be careful, and if you want to find out more about your birth mother, come back here uh, in an hour,
Okay.
and I'll tell you about your birth mother. And
Mhm.
she's looking at her like she's crazy. And she says, "What do you know of my birth?" She says, "I know more than you think." And she shows her a scar. It's kind of like a star shaped scar
Uh,
on her arm. And she says, "You have this same scar." And Becca sees the scar, and she touches her chest right here, because when she was an infant, her mother was she tripped over a stone, and a velvet thorn pierced the baby's chest there. And
okay.
when it was pulled out, it left this little heart-shaped or this star-shaped scar.
Okay.
And so that's going to play a theme, but it's got a little bit of romance in it, but nothing heavy.
Okay. Perfect. That sounds really exciting. I like that. That sounds really fun. Do you have, so what are your biggest struggles with writing when you work on a story?
Well, I get, like in my last book, Witch Moon, I was having issues with, I was saying their eyes went wide, and everywhere I looked, and I never noticed it. And then my editor was looking at it, and she says, "Wow, I found 168 eyes wide." And I said, "Oh my God." And so we went through and I got rid of all of them. Now I've gone through some of my other books that on my computer. I've got like 15 other books that are in various stages, anywhere from some that have 1,000 words written on it already, and some that have 33,000 words.
Okay.
Because if I get stuck writing and I'm at a block and I can't get past it, I'll quit one story and I'll go start working on another genre. And it frees me up, like it loosens a cog in my mind or something, and I can go back to the other one where I was and jump back in it and start going. And it's just strange, but
no, yeah, that's very nice. I wish I could do that, just jump back and forth from projects. Sometimes I will if I get the chance. But I absolutely understand about the eyes widening thing. I tend to describe people's eyes a lot. And now my husband's always like, "You're describing their eyes a lot." And I'm like, dang it. I know, but I noticed that. So
they say eyes are the windows to the soul, so, and you can tell so much by looking at somebody's eyes. So
exactly. And for me, that's like something that I'm drawn to in conversations. I usually make a lot of eye contact, and I notice like when there's little changes in people's eyes, or like, if they squint them and stuff. So so I'm always like, okay, well, I guess I do it, but the norm of people don't do that as much.
Now that she's brought that to my attention, I sit there and now she says 1 or 2's okay.
Yeah.
But I was writing it's supernatural with werewolves, vampires, and witches, and so I had a lot of them. They were gasping with their eyes wide, or their eyes went wide, and I thought, okay, I've got a bad problem with that. And another problem I've got is I'll use italics a lot.
Okay.
And I'm having to cut back on that because it takes if I overuse it, it gets to be too much.
Yeah.
And then it loses what I really need it. When I need to use it, it's kind of lost because, well, yeah, okay, you've used italics before. Make it count. So
yeah.
I'm still learning, but
no, I think we all do that.
Yeah.
So, okay, do you have, from your books, do you have one favorite character, or do you have a couple? Can you tell us about them a little bit?
Well, in my the Chronicles of Vespia series, my main character Becca, she was born in Vespia, sent through the portal as a baby, and grew to 15 years old. And then when Morag, she met that encounter in the fun house, the Morag's dog got her scent.
Okay.
And so later on, the next morning, when she's at home, she comes downstairs and her parents are looking at her, and and his dad's reading the newspaper, and he folds the newspaper, plops it down on the kitchen table, and she's just picked up a glass of orange juice, and she sees the headlines, and it says 2 Midvale teens slain at carnival grounds. Jeez. And it happens to be Ginger Whitney, the girl that she had given her jacket to.
Yeah.
She's sitting there thinking that, oh my God, she died because she was wearing my jacket. She had my scent.
Yeah.
That guy, Morag's dog, had gotten. And so she contacts her other friends, and she says, we all need to I need to see everybody because we're all in danger, because he had my scent. He was there with Trevor, you all gave me a hug at the carnival when we first met, showed up at the ticket booth, we all hugged one another. So he's got all our sense, and he's going to, if he can't find me, he's going to come for you and your family. So we've got to stop him. So Becca's one of my favorite characters in that. And then when she first goes through the portal, they all get separated because they all go through kind of together, but they get separated. Okay. And a battle ensues right there at the beginning, because Morog's people are there trying to find them, and the gypsies are there trying to save them. And one woman in particular, Valoria, manages to get a hold of Becca and take her, because she's wanting. She knows that Becca is the one that the prophecy talks about, and is going to supposedly kill her father, because she wants her father to pay for killing her little sister when she was an infant. And she tried to prevent her sister's death, and he attacked his own daughter, and she lost an eye and got scarred up, and he was just a bad man all around. And so she's become one of my favorite characters too, because when they got through the portal, they had to get out of the clothes that they were wearing, because it would have their scent, and it would be easier to track. So they had to change clothes. And so she's got all these different clothes for Becca to put on, and Becca's having to take off her bra, and what is that? She kind of holds it on the end of her bra, and she's wondering, what is that? And she says, it's for support, and so it's kind of comical. But after she gets off her bra and stuff, and gets these leather clothing on, the last thing she took off was her thong, and she says, wait till you see this. Wait till you get over this then, and it's got a little bit of humor like that in it. But Valoria is one of my favorites in that series as well.
That is awesome.
Then, of course, I got Lady Rosa, who's a gypsy fortune teller that guides them along. And in my supernatural book, I've got a couple of favorite characters there. The main character, of course, is Kat St. Clair, and her 6-year-old brother Bobby. They live in New York City, and they're orphaned. Their parents were killed in a car accident, and then their father was killed instantly. Their mother was at the hospital, and she's on life support, and she passes away while they're there. And then they see a wolf run from like the hospital window and out across the parking lot, and there's another wolf, and they both have a gray wolf and a white wolf, and they have this like a bluish glowing aura around them. And 6-year-old Bobby looks out and he says, is that mom and dad? And Kat looks at him and says, how can it be? But then their aunt shows up at the hospital and to take them to the Hollows, and they don't know anything about the Hollows. They don't know anything about their family, except all she knows is that her aunt has sent her the medallion she wears, which is a pentagram in a circle, and on the back of it it says Cave Canem, which is beware the dog. And it's a magical talisman that her aunt sent, and it's supposedly to protect from wolves and lycanthropy. And she was told that she had to wear it from the time she was 13 and never take it off. And so she never has, but she doesn't know why until she gets to the Hollows, and she learns that her grandmother is a very strict lady, so strict that she believes in like Kat is called Catherine, Bobby is called Robert, Abby, her aunt, is called Abigail. She has to have it, the proper name, and she's very strict. And she learns that she's a high priestess in the local coven, and her aunt is also a witch, but she's no longer in the coven because she's separated from it. But she learns that she's why she ends up finding out why her aunt sent that talisman was to protect her from turning into a wolf. And she learns that her parents had actually were able to shapeshift into wolf form, and she had never known it before. And now she says, well, how is this going to she says, I can tell you, but you'll know more if I show you. So she takes her down into her basement, and there's this shackles on the floor there. And she says, wait, what is all this? And her aunt says, you got to trust me. And she remembers something that her mom said, that always trusting her aunt, that she would never do anything to her. And so she kind of, okay. And, she allows herself to be shackled. Well, then her aunt removes that talisman from her neck. And all of a sudden she starts to feel herself and there's a VHS recorder, a camcorder there, recording it all. And it records her being shape-shifted into a wolf. And her aunt plays it for her the next day, so she can see herself standing there, and she sees herself transform. So she says, oh my God, I'm a monster. And her aunt says, no, you're only a monster if you choose to be. Mm-hmm. So she finds out that has this shape-shifting ability, and that she knows that when her brother gets to be 13, her aunt says, well, I'll make him a talisman as well, so that he will be protected. And so she learns about that, but she also finds out that her brother's best friend now, they've been homeschooled, so they never really had, they were never in public schools before. Their mm-hmm. parents homeschooled them to protect them and to protect everybody else. And so Bobby he's only 6 years old, but he's very articulate for a young kid. He's spent more time around adults than he has people his own age. So he's now friends with a little girl that died in 1884, and she's a ghost, and she'll play with, they have fun together. But she finds out later that her grandmother has taken Bobby into the past to 1884 so that he can play with this little girl.
Oh, wow.
And so, and she says, she of course swears him to secrecy, can't tell anybody. So, mm-hmm. One night at dinner, they're all sitting there in Wellington House and having dinner, and Bobby's got this little revolutionary soldier that he's playing with. And, his grandmother says, you need to put that away. You don't play with that at the dinner table. And he shoves it in his pocket. Well, when they're done with dinner, Bobby and Kat are going upstairs to their room, and she asks him about that soldier. And he says, I found it, and later on she goes and she sees this painting in this attic storage room, and it's got this little girl in front of Wellington House. And in her hand is that Revolutionary War soldier.
Oh, cool.
And the next time she goes up there and sees it, the little girl's not holding that soldier anymore. And so she's starting to feel, and she sees these visions of this ghost, and the ghost keeps telling her, he's mine. And it, kind of freaking her out, and she's not sure what to do. So Kat's a favorite of mine on that, but she goes into town to do a little bit of research, and she goes into the Hollows Public Library and meets another girl there who's her age, but becomes an instant friends.
Oh, cool.
And so Millie has become a favorite. She's an awkward girl, outcast at school, doesn't have very many friends, she's really into the occult. Her mom's she lives with her grandmother, and her grandmother is a little old lady that reads fortunes for the other ladies and does tarot readings and crystal ball readings. And so the witches all think, she's a charlatan and speak down on her. But and Millie's real insecure because she's a little overweight, and she's got these big old glasses that keep sliding down her nose, and she's always having to slide them back into place and all. But her and Kat become good friends.
Oh, that's awesome. It's very cool. That sounds really, really intriguing. I like that plot line. So I think that we've gone over all of the questions today. I've had so much fun talking to you and learning
Once
about
you get me started, it's hard to shut me up. So I apologize.
No. It's been so fun chatting with you, and I'm very excited to read these and learn more about them. So
well, they've been a lot of fun to write. I'm in the process of writing the third book in the Chronicles of Vespia and the third book in the Hollows. And I'm thinking that there's going to be 2 more in the Chronicles of Vespia, my fantasy series, and 1 more at least in the Hollows.
Okay.
And then and plus I got this other series I'm going to be starting. We're working on it now. I'm hoping to have it done and have my wife read it over so she can tell me, oh, no, we got to fix that. And it'll be ready to go by September, and then I'll start working with my editor on the editing of it. So it'll come out next year.
Well, you are super busy. That is impressive.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. It keeps, well, I'm retired now, so what I do during the day is I have a lot of time to write, but I'm a stay-at-home papa for my grandson. He's 8 months old, so I'm taking care of him during the day, and he's kind of slowed down my writing a little bit having him, but he's a blast. When he naps, I've got a little swing here that he sits in, and he'll fall asleep, and I'll start writing away. So.
That is awesome. That is great. Well, thank you again so much for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, I had so much fun, and I wish you all the success in the world, and cannot wait to pick up a copy of all of your books.
I can't wait to read yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, and thank you all for watching. This was the Witches and Prose podcast.